So we're going to take a look today at how to solve equations. So let's start with some vocabulary. Our first word is a solution, which we talked about previously. A solution is a value that makes an equation true. A solution is a value that makes an equation true. Moving on to the next word is inverse operations. Inverse operations undo an operation. Another operation. So for example, addition and subtraction is an example of an inverse operation. They undo each other. Then we have two properties of equality, one for addition and one for subtraction. The addition property of equality states that when you add the same number to each side of an equation, the two sides remain equal. When you add the same number to each side of an equation, the two sides remain equal. And the subtraction property of equality is similar, but just with subtraction. When you subtract the same number from each side of an equation, again, the two sides remain equal. When you subtract the same number from each side of an equation, the two sides remain equal. Now we are going to check a value to determine if it's a solution. So here my equation is q over 2 equals 28, and my value for q is 14. So I replace the value in for the variable, so I put 14 over 2 equals 28. 14 divided by 2 is 7. 7 does not equal 28, so 14 is not a solution for this equation. In the second example, 4y equals 56, I am using y equals 14. Again, I'm going to replace y with 14, and that equals 56. Remember, the coefficient is the number in front of the variable, and that is telling me to multiply. 4 times 14 is 56. And since the right and the left-hand side of the equation are equal, that tells me that yes, 14 is a solution to that equation. Now let's take a look at solving our equations. So we're going to use the inverse operations to undo these. Number 3 says x minus 2 equals 6. The inverse operation of subtracting 2 is adding 2. And as we've discussed, we need to keep the equation balanced. So if I add 2 to the left, I have to add 2 to the right. So if I have 2 negatives and 2 positives, that is going to become 0. And sometimes I just cross that out to show that it's 0. The x I'm going to bring down. I need to bring down my equal sign. And then 6 plus 2 is 8. So x equals 8. It's also important that you check your solution to make sure you solved it correctly. And to do that, I'm going to take the value that I solved for, which is 8, and I'm going to put it back into the original equation. So 8 minus 2 equals 6. I'm going to subtract on the left. 8 minus 2 is 6. And since the right and the left-hand side are equal, I know that I solved my equation correctly. Example number 4. 18 equals x minus 7. This time the variable's on the right, but since I'm subtracting 7 from the variable, I am going to add 7. And again, I need to do it to each side of my equation to keep it balanced. Again, if I have negative 7 and I add 7, when I add the opposite, it becomes 0. 18 plus 7 is 25. So 25 equals x. Again, I'm going to do my check. 18 equals 25 minus 7. 25 minus 7 is 18. Since the left and the right-hand side are equal to each other, I know that the value that I solved for is correct. Number 5, x plus 2 equals 9. So as you hear I'm saying that, I'm saying plus 2. So think to yourself, what is the inverse operation of adding 2? That would be subtracting 2. And I have to, again, do it to each side. And yes, you must show this work. You cannot do this mentally in your head. So if I have a positive 2 and a negative 2, that's 0. So I'll cross that out and put x equals, and then 9 minus 2 is 7. Again, I'm going to check my solution. So I put 7 back into the original equation. So I have 7 plus 2 equals 9. 7 plus 2 is 9, and 9 equals 9. So I know that I solved the equation correctly. My last example, 26 equals 11 plus x. So this one here I'm adding, but you also have to look at the value of this integer. This is a positive integer, okay? If it was negative, it would have to have a negative sign in front of it. So a positive integer means I have to do the opposite of that, which is a negative. So I'm going to subtract 11 from each side of my equation. 26 minus 11 is 15, and that equals x, because positive 11 and negative 11 is 0. Once again, it's important that you check your solution. This is how you determine if you may have an error. So I'm going to put 15 into my original equation. 26 equals 11 plus 15, and 26 equals 26. So I know that I solved my equation correctly.